Okay, it says we're going, but my whole screen isn't up. Okay, now it is. Okay, it looks like, you know what? My screen isn't right. I've got, I don't have it split right.
That happened, did not happen last.
Let me fix this. Quick. Yeah, because I have to split the screen every time fresh. Okay, there you go. That's better. All right, that should translate eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get over to the sharing of this stream with Facebook and Twitter X. Yeah, the internet's slow, but there is something being broadcast, and it says there were 2 viewers already. That's great to hear. And about chat. Joseph Coates is here. Hey Sawyer, how's it going? It's going okay. If I can get it together and be able to do these streams, um, sometimes it's hard to let the things about in life, keep you down or something. Hmm? Not a baby. We we had a little bit of roughness, but it wasn't that bad. Hello Sawyer, been a while, says FFFF Fawn. Yes, did you always have 4 F's in your name? Only joking. But let's see, we gotta change this to the live chat.
Oh, we forgot to scare that guy. He came out. Mr. Opportunity.
Oh, really? Okay, that's what you want to broadcast to the world right now, Kathy?
Oh, oh.
No, Kathy was thinking of a very insignificant thing for Halloween to play some spooky music for somebody that wasn't anticipating it happening. And I mean, like something like that might happen, like seemingly accidentally, or it could be even something that maybe could be programmed. I guess that let's say you have that desire, and somebody else has a transmitter to your phone or something. You have to put it on something. I don't know. I'm being silly, but
They're watching you.
yeah, right. Yeah, so it's breaking up on the connection. Well, maybe that's just the video. So let me know if you can still hear me on the audio. If there's anybody that can, before I talk much. Halloween is a very peculiar holiday, says Joseph Coates.
They
Yeah, and from my observation, it's a bigger holiday than any others.
something else.
Yeah, I guess Christmas still is in this country. I guess Christmas is still the dominant. Um, well, ancestry, right? I guess, which includes Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and Kwanzaa. I'm not saying that right. Kwanzaa. That's right. Kwanzaa. Sorry, I am old, so I do have an excuse. Audio's fine, says FFF Fawn. Video is choppy, right? Exactly. Well, right. Well, with that said, let me move on to what this topic is supposed to be about, which is humans being addicted to humans. And that was a title that Kathy and I came up with, but uh, that's not what Doe didn't talk about in those exact words. But you can, if you can see on my screen, which I'm going to go to, and so that you don't have to, and I'll read it largely, is that. Um, well, I'm not going to get to the subject yet, uh, because it's for anybody that's new to this broadcast. This what's on the screen, if you can see it, are my rough notes from listening to audio tape that Doe made with the student body at the time, recorded on January 30th, 1988. And yes, I was in that meeting. I was in all the meetings until 1994, part of 1994. So, so that's tape 291. So yes, I'm an author of that meeting.
Anyway,
I was there. You might hear my voice once in a while.
yeah.
I mean, you do it probably every third video or something, audio,
Well,
maybe fourth, fifth, maybe, hence. Yeah, because
to read.
yeah, it's hard to draw a line on it. It's happened frequently enough to verify that I was there. Unless they want 1,000 times that to verify I was there. Anyway, but they will.
Anyway, let's move on.
There has been actually.
I know, I know. You've shown me.
Yeah, and I don't blame somebody for
Yeah.
questioning. You know,
Right. So,
yeah, right. I would want really find out if that was interesting to me, if this information was interesting. Anyway, so this material that's in these tapes, and there's over 1,000 of them, and they deal with all kinds of subject matter. But mostly, the whole thing is about that humans were um, right from the beginning of the experiment that the next level had on Earth that ended up being recorded because the next level wanted that to happen. Uh, um, and that became the records that, they say is Genesis and all that. Okay, so, and, uh, and so in that, the first thing that T and Doe verified, like, verified, that's not the right way to say it, but they provided the insights to what I believe is the most accurate way of looking at uh, that story in Genesis of Adam and Eve and the Lord and the serpent. But they didn't like get into it in detail, and not like humans do in the theologians, by dissecting every word. They knew they felt like they knew that Adam had the first thing he did that was considered to be a sin was not being satisfied with just having a task for his older member, because that is the relationship that younger members have with older members. By their own desire, they want to be with that individual, doing tasks for that individual, and so the soul that we're talking about in the next level grown vehicle that was in that vehicle, that physical body, that Nintendo felt like was a next level grown physical body. So it was grown on a vine kind of idea to adulthood. They don't have children like humans have children, um, because they're vehicles that the souls are then becoming the pilot of. Because the vehicle can, if it did die for some reason, and that's possible that that can happen, but then they just go to wardrobe and get another one. Okay, so anyway, so in that story, um, when Adam wasn't satisfied, so uh, his older member said to him, okay, well, not said to him, just gave him a split him, removed whatever they needed to remove, or implanted whatever they needed to implant, or did surgery on whatever they needed to do surgery on. However, they could do things in ways that we can't imagine. Uh, um, that took from that vehicle that Adam had. First man is the actual meaning of that word. I mean, there's a number of meanings of it, uh, but it was splitting him into, and there were two minds then, the mind of Adam and the mind of Eve, that uh, were now addicted to one another. And um, and and because of the beginning of that, uh, um, they were influenced, more easily influenced by the lower forces to become procreative, procreative, to satisfy the other half in the addiction. Now, normally we think of addictions as negatives, right? And in this case, it's not a negative, but it is the path to um, uh, seeking to develop, seeking to become, seeking to grow, seeking to be a part of uh, whatever created this planet and the life forms on it. It's all like sort of like that. Best way I can think about it, and so because the idea is right from the beginning to at some point keep on that path and seeking to please the creators of this planet because they're certainly greater than us, uh, and uh, and then and that would entail overcoming the addiction to other humans, and because that's what's required by the next level to work towards. in order for them to have a reason to try to help you. Because if somebody doesn't want that help, they're not seeking it, they're not asking for it, they're not projecting their mind as far away from this planet as they can imagine in order to escape what the lower forces of this planet in thought, mind, and deed would impose upon them in thinking and acting and everything. So you have to get out of the range of this planet, the actual literal physicality of this planet, and the atmosphere is part of that, in order to get those radio waves projected out towards the stars. That's actually a reality of technicality. It's radio frequencies that humans haven't been given, according to Tiendo. This is all according to Tiendo, I hope. Um, I'm putting it in my own words, but except for the biggest keywords, trying to stick to those because they're so powerful. And anyway, but so that's where I believe that it's true that humans are addicted to other humans. And okay, no, where I left off was why? Why would somebody have to break that addiction in order to serve the creators? And and it's not that you have to; it's that um, it it's knowing what the end result is helps you recognize that. Well, for me, I can't talk for everybody, of course, but or even anybody, but um, it's not like a decision in my mind to want to try to serve the creators of this planet and the life forms on it, who I identify as being Tiendo, as being the highest, the heads, the chief administrator of the planet, T, and Do, the captain under the chief administrator of the planet. That's the way Do described them at one point in their relationship. And and so anyway, so we're built to be temporary creatures, I believe, because automatically we're going to break that addiction to somebody else. I don't know if that's the whole thing. I'm not saying that, pretending that's the whole overview of some sort, uh, but it's somewhere in there. I think safe to say that's one part of it, one tiny part of the idea. That for being temporary creatures, and that I can think of. I mean, that's what my opinion is of that. But so that's not from Tiendo's mind necessarily. It might be, because that's not the way. The thing is, since I'm painting myself into a corner here, which I do all the time. Um, uh, um, and Kath is letting me know that
No,
it's okay.
it's okay.
No, but I keep on wanting to. Every time I see a picture of something that I suspect isn't necessarily a common picture, it may be, but I don't know if it is because I don't. It depends on what I see in the media and things, right? That's how I'm informed about what people are talking about. And T and O's language is like another language in itself. Their ideas, their thoughts, the way they think, the meaning of those words, a lot of times can, like have different Sorry, I'm babbling now. But let me go to the chat. See if you can save me in the chat before I'll try to get back to where I was. That's ridiculous. I'm not even going to repeat that. Boy. Remove. Okay. All right. So I just had a stupid troll kind of person. So Jade says, "Oh, there's a bunch of let's see, old school Dave came in and says hello, wonderful YouTube friends, and hello, Christopher, 1896. Now that's an interesting year, and I'll get to that in a second. I mean, there's a number of interesting years, more interesting than other years. I see. All right, I'm caught up with that. So 1896. Okay, now there seems to be a relationship. Now, I don't know if it applies to that time period in 1896 in the year 1896, but between the 5 and the 6 and the 7 are thought to be the years where uh, um, let's see, like three different stages of growth. And one way to think about it would be like with the Moses experiment, the Jesus experiment, and the tea and dough experiment. Okay, being like the 5, the 6, and the 7. And then if you look at that in like terms of revelations, the materials there, and the history of those some of the history of I don't know the history of the 6 and the 5 very well, but the 7 I just know enough about it to say that it represents in some ways the end of a cycle. It's done. Like it says in Revelation 16 towards the end of it, which is the end of everything, it seems like, uh, whenever that might be. Um, and for whatever, I mean, to what degree it might be, we don't know what's going to happen, period. So to be afraid of it doesn't do any good. But then again, maybe it does do some good because maybe it helps us, uh, ask help of the next level. Then to me it would be a positive to have that little bit of fear or anyway, but I could be wrong about that. But so the 7 meant uh, okay. So in the fifth trumpet sounding in Revelation 8, I think, or maybe that was the beginning of 9. Might have been the beginning of 9. I'm getting that mixed up now. But it says that an angel comes down to the earth. Okay, and it doesn't say that often. It's only like 3 times, I think. And the 2 witnesses are the 3rd time. That's another way that's said. Um, so, uh, so the 5th angel trumpet is sounding the trumpet. Okay, that means it's putting out vibrations. It's a reverberation is the actual Greek word. It's putting out sound waves. And the carriers on those sound waves are the thoughts of the next level. It's what's in their minds automatically. It's not like they're like playing an instrument to broadcast it. It's just, it's there and it's the way they vibrate. So it's like a window. Each thought is like a window into your mind. So, um, so when they're present, then a lot of things are being held together. or no, let me put it this way: a lot of negativity is being uh, reflected away from a lot of people. Everybody probably in some degrees. I mean, some maybe in more degrees than others. You know, the way that the next level manages what we can call the spirit thought world, the world of frequencies, on various forms of transportation. Sound waves riding on other kinds of waves, carrier waves. But so, I mean, the image I was getting of that as I was trying to describe it was making me, I feel like I've been recognizing the escalation of the change, the big change that happened, and just so happened to happen when 1997. That's actually where that first document was written. That's political, that was wanting to have a fight better wars, bigger wars around the planet for their agenda, which I believe that agenda was, they believe is justified because I think that some of the people think that there is an alien attack coming. And they think they're trying to prepare us for
Or
that.
or an armada to pick everybody up.
Or right, or it could
There
be
were
our,
people. There was a group on Facebook that was saying that. I bet those people are going ape right now, thinking that Three Atlas is, coming maybe to pick everybody up.
yeah, yeah. I don't doubt that there's people that believe that because I mean, people believe that something's going to pick them up. That's what the whole rapture, in the most general definition
So
is.
you guys researched the Dorothy Martin.
I don't remember that name myself, but they may have. They talked about it in one of the tapes.
I was listening to this thing about conspiracy there. It they were expecting a UFO to pick them up, and they went and they waited. They were expecting it to come at midnight, and nothing happened, and they got upset. But then, like, she changed and said she had received another transmission. I'll have to look it up to see what it was before
Yeah, I don't remember that, but
I feel like I remember Doe talking about her and her group.
it sounds a little familiar, but I don't know where to place it in the details of it.
I don't know. I just thought of that because of that this similar group that was had a Facebook group.
Yeah, the real rapture, laughing out loud. Well, right. What if the real rapture was the aliens want to eat the people? I mean, that's what some people were saying, right? Uh,
And they've just been trying to convince us it's a
and
good
if
thing
it
this whole
convince them
time.
that if they believe in Christianity in that form,
We'll go willingly.
they'll willingly go. You don't have to abduct them.
Kind of like you're just gonna go take a shower.
Maybe they like the way they think too. Maybe they think they can use them for other things. Actually, if they take their physical body with them. But
We are
if you look back at some of the history,
in that story. We are God's creation. So of course, like our bodies and stuff would be valuable.
yeah, look at the way humans are taking everything they can from humans: hormones, eggs, sperm,
Fetus.
body parts, organs, and they're trying to develop their own at the same time. Trying to develop skin and so they're at the bare bones. I mean, talk about primitive. compared to these vehicles, the way they work so well and they live so long, if you treat them at least decently, and that can be pretty minimal too. People can get by on a lot less food probably than we eat,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you start burning your fat, and that can in the human kingdom, if if you they have all these little tricks that they can try to get you to buy to do that for you.
Turn your volume off.
Uh, oh, thanks. So XF is here and says, some say that 3i Atlas may be a robot that is similar to the Doomsday Machine from Star Trek. Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
That will wipe Earth clean instead of chopping it up into separate bits to absorb into itself as fuel. Oh, okay.
There you go. You can put that down. You can put that down, baby.
Like the early Simpsons Halloween special. That was a Rapture one, I guess. I don't know if I saw that. I think I did see that, but I don't remember it. Uh, yeah. See, I do have an interpretation of what that really was, and I think the words are rapture isn't in the manuscripts that I've seen, the Bible, the New Testament. So it says that there's a catching away. There's a catching away. So you don't know how long the catching away will be and when it's happening. It could be happening every day, where individuals that lose their vehicles, or the next level is taking that vehicle, that soul or spirit, and saving it to a future opportunity. You don't know whether that's not happening, or if that spirit just stays where it is whenever that happened, or if that spirit is allowed to stay where it is for a while for some reason, and the next level, before the next level decides whether they store it somewhere else first. But yeah, I don't know about that, but I think it's a possibility among a number, I'm sure, that I can't think of. I'm not capable of thinking of. But the real meaning, well, let me put it this way: the most accurate meaning, in my opinion, is that the catching away actually had an application to the students that left everything behind to give their all to becoming a member of the T and O's crew classroom. Um, uh, Endeavor, the process they called it at first, the process which meant changing over into a new creature, using the vehicle as the instrument of changing into a new creature that no longer related to being a caterpillar anymore and was, moving in that direction to being able to be a new creature that has a new environment that the caterpillar knows nothing, next to nothing about. Um, so, and that's like the symbology of the next level. That's being a butterfly, and they literally do fly. So, but I don't know if they fly without a spacecraft. Uh, if they have that kind of a vehicle, I don't know about that exactly. But I think Doe recently said something that said that that was actually possible, right? When we was talking about those big angels.
That's right.
So that
Yep.
that's like a member, an older member of the next level that can appear to be a big figure in the sky, and that's different than a hologram. But that's what humans are doing, and space aliens have been doing that for a long time before humans had technology to do that. At least the technology of this civilization. But as far as we can see evidenced, um, but so the, so they like for instance we can do holograms now with drones, right? Could probably put things on the screen that look like three-dimensional.
I know they've done stuff at concerts, and
Yeah, and you got the holograms of like Michael Jackson and some other performers that I have never
I
seen
feel
that.
like it's gotten probably a lot more than.
And Tiendo felt like in 1975 that the Our Lady of Fatima was a hologram that the space aliens were doing. They didn't, yeah, that it was just not from the Father's kingdom because the older members' kingdom, they didn't really talk like Father uh, originally. They only started talking, well, Doe kept on talking both because he wanted people to know that that history is where uh, this was all coming from. Because there's so many people that have been affected by that history in that way, and and so that doesn't leave out anybody. I'm just saying that for that part of the experiment, for the individuals that might be ready to um, uh, go in that direction more and more,
I
if not by intention alone, you know. Maybe.
Because I've been up since what,
I
3?
know. We had a good nap though,
We did,
but
but
I
I
won't
feel
be
like I
much
need
longer.
to. I feel like I need to like catch up. But don't worry about it. Don't worry about
All
it.
right,
Honestly, don't worry about it.
all right. We'll see if how much energy I have.
Yeah.
In fact, I would like to have something
Do
energetic.
what do you, I can get you some water. I can get you some.
How about some
You wanted to
coffee?
stay away from the coffee, didn't you? You want me
Yeah,
to get some for you?
wouldn't mind.
Okay.
Just like an ounce.
Mhm.
It's
And
like my espresso, but it's not espresso.
yeah.
It's
We're talking
medium coffee. But so I don't say what Three Eye Atlas is, but I suspect it's. If I was going to guess, um, I would say it's part of the next level's approach in a more concrete way, in a more hard to defy way, or harder to think ordinarily about, or to limit our thoughts to the human kingdom about. You know, it's like because they're not from the human kingdom. So the closer they get, and when they have direct view of us, that the sun's rays are actually probably riding upon. They're probably riding upon the sun's rays because they use all the technology that has been developed. However, it's been developed and harnessed, well, we don't know. You know what we don't know. Of course, uh, the Tiendo never talked of something finite to the next level. So it's always growing, and we're not capable of knowing where the chief of chiefs came from. That's the way they would talk about the most experienced person in the next level. I use a lot of this. Maybe I used a little more than usual. It's really hard. That really makes up a lot of escapes, that thing. You're going to do the shake there? With shake up my coffee with my creamer in it, my powdered cleanser in it. I don't want to take up space in the refrigerator with dairy products.
They go back.
Right, they go bad before I want to use them up because I don't use that much when I do use it. But we have yogurt. We use yogurt and cheese, and so we certainly have plenty of dairy.
This needs to
It's actually not leaking. No, that's good. That's good.
no, it's not surprisingly.
It's not good.
No, I covered it with that.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Oh yeah. So, yeah, I know. Not if it's got leaks in it. It's a good old cow.
I covered the thing. It's covered. Now give me.
So, okay, so I got to get back to the tape. Is anybody still here? It's amazing. You're very patient. But I was talking about. He talks about addiction, you know, in different ways. That I'll get to it. I'll get to it here. And these are my rough notes. They're not good. I can't even understand some of the words. So I'm having to skip over those parts. And I would have a real transcript if it was up to me, but I'm not allowed to do that. That's another whole story. But so I'm making my own creation out of it. Yeah, I don't mind it. Right now it feels good to me. Yeah, oh, it is? Okay. You want to put it on?
No.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thanks. So, Doe refers to in these tapes, many times, probably every tape you'll definitely hear a number of times where he talks in terms of his connection or and desired connection and and past connection with T while T was in her vehicle. For the first 10 years or so. Well, actually 13 years. I don't know if it's exactly 13. Maybe it's a little over 12. But anyway, because T left her vehicle in 1985. And I'm not going to go through the history of that. But it was a big change for Doe. And like before, when T was here, he wasn't addicted to the students, and the students weren't. But the students were still seeking to be addicted to him. And but when T left, then uh, it seemed to be part of um, the way it works that he was still he wanted to give all his efforts to his older member. He was still addicted to his older member as his source, but his older member gave him the task of helping bring up the students to becoming members of the next level. That was the reason why they performed the task in the beginning. Not because they need new members. They don't need new members. It's because they know what they've got. They know they're real. They know it's a reality that is way above anything that a human could. Well, a human can imagine aspects of it um, without the humanness part of it, and still having heart and feelings and love and like the movie Cocoon demonstrated. How those beings were like in kind of light body beings, but they had physicality to them, and they could um, exchange mind uh, that the other could feel, actually literally feel it. And Doe talks about how he gets feelings, emotional feelings that are very satisfying to him. So he doesn't feel like he needs to satisfy his addictions that the vehicle has with the human kingdom. So we're talking about addiction of mind and body, different addictions. But part of the whole of the mind that's developing in each of these vehicles of the human kingdom and in the animal kingdom. And I don't know if the same kind of development happens in the plant kingdom as with the animal kingdom. I think there's degrees of service that they offer in different ways that aren't so individualistic anymore. Like with an animal, they're evolving to be domesticated animals that become members of the families of those who domesticate them. And they know it, and the ones that uh, go all the way with that, stay on that track, well then uh, they're accelerating the fastest. And well, I don't know if it's fastest because speed isn't necessarily everything. I mean, we can think of things in a negative, like, you know, if we don't do this, then we're not going to go to heaven, okay? If we don't give our all, we're not going to go to heaven. You know, like the way that Tiendo taught is there's a time to give one's all. I mean, you can want to give your all, you can have the intention of giving your all, but are you able to do it is a huge, huge challenge because it means actually, in the overview of that, is ceasing being a mammalian human being with all the feelings and thoughts and hormones and everything that we all experience automatically that triggers this and triggers that and wants this and wants that and doesn't want that and all the decisions we make around it and all the thinking around it, you know, and the the sensual pleasures. Like I was a little down before today, and I had some sugar and I felt my mood lift. That's the first time I think I actually recognize that. Even though I know when I drink coffee, and probably with the combination of the sugars that are in it, gives me a lift as well. I do that in order to be alert while I'm driving because sometimes I feel like I'm like in a cloud, with my mind, and I'm not as keen as I need to be, and so I'm willing to recognize that I need some kind of chemical stimulus in order to do that job and do it safely. So, I think it is a value to all the things in the human kingdom. And it's up to us to learn what works for us and what doesn't. And the next level has ways of having challenges, all kinds of challenges. But I believe no matter what the challenges are, uh, if somebody looks to what they identify as the creators of this planet and the life forms on it, uh, you know, even if they don't believe in the terminology of, talking about to the heavens, they don't have to have the heavens idea in them. They can just have an innate kind of, having some genes from the creators in their vehicles that are still active enough to where they can have that degree of being in tune with the next level. And the next level may know how to identify a lot of different levels of connectivity to them. And that's why we can't judge anybody. They could be in another country that doesn't have technology like we have, but I think everybody in the world has some access to technology now. With all the benefit of the corporations doing better when they have more people on board with buying the cell phones and make more money. So they got reasons why they want to give everybody. You could have barely enough to eat, but you'll have a cell phone, right? And and I can understand people wanting cell phones. I mean, it's an amazing link, and not just cell phones, but of course, smart devices. I think they've been a huge positive, and they've also been used as a huge negative. And now you have almost like two sides of the coin in all different ways. Relating with one another because they're the same coin, but there's different sides to them. And it's like they're all um, essentially scrambling to have as much money as they can have for the projects they want to support. Okay, and those projects that they want to support aren't necessarily known until after the fact, or not even after the fact. There's so many layers of things that can be given to the public to keep the public thinking, or most of the public thinking in certain ways, and not doing too much of the other side. And so automatically you've got the beginning of brainwashing when you only have one point of view being blasted at you day and night, and you don't want to hear anything different. So then it seeps in as facts, and so it's only when what's fortunate about it is that the next level has designed it to operate in a way that automatically it's going to operate in this way. Because what you actually have are um, strains of minds and space alien souls with hybridized uh, um, equivalent to human vehicles, even though they may be very different in many ways. I don't know what's possible in that regard for the space aliens to do with their laboratories on their spacecrafts. Um, that they, you know, uh, they can have access to all the things that humans have access to if they find ways of, getting to the right person, the right people here and there. So we don't know what the governments are doing with some of the space aliens. It doesn't mean that's what they're doing with all of them. That's what I was getting to, is that there's different ways of them riding herd on the human kingdom. Now they're really not riding herd on the human kingdom in the way that looks as if like a cowboy does, like riding herd over a bunch of cattle with one horse. Which I don't know what it would take to do that with one horse. We wear that horse out pretty fast, I guess. So that's why they have multiple cowboys doing it. But and I don't mean to eliminate cowgirls from or cow thems, whatever it may be. But it doesn't. We see it. We know it's happening. Things are broadcast a certain way, and then you hear all the things that, when it's evaluated, all the things that come out that don't jibe with the story. And I think a lot of times there's a combination of things happening in that regard. That it's to their benefit, whoever are the instigators of events that happen, like with the Charlie Kirk shooting. Now they're saying that the neck was an exit wound or he was shot from behind. Which I don't know. That doesn't sound unusual. It doesn't sound far fetched to me. Especially because there was no blood in the camera that was behind Charlie Kirk. That would have happened if it was the exit wound. And then all the stories kept on lining up, and of course everything's being said under the sun about it, and 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 that's part of the effort to, so that nobody can actually know what's true and what's not know. However, um, I mean, it doesn't mean that they cannot know. To me, it's impossible to say that it's impossible. That the next level can see to it that all things become evident that are true versus all the things that are not true. So like take that down to JFK, blah blah blah, and 9/11. All the events that have happened over the you know last century. Let's just limit it to that for now in the United States, because I know a lot less about other countries' history. But so, and what you see in history and books and things, uh, a lot of times you see the truth about things that, and then if somebody doesn't like write a book about that, how that was the truth about like the Vietnam War and things like that, regarding like the way that they escalated the war to carpet bomb Cambodia and Laos, and more bombs were dropped during that time period than or all of World War II by the United States. And who knows if the French were still involved there then too. But I don't remember now. But I think they were. Uh, but anyway, so all the things that if anybody put any effort into would see some of the handwriting on the wall that paints a picture that there's something fishy going on with that story, that part of the story. Now, some of those fishiness things are actually inserted into the story, into the media. And then somebody looking at it hears that and they think, oh my gosh, am I just like believing these wild conspiracy theories by believing all this is possible, is true? And so that makes a big question there, right, of whether that really is happening. And that's fine. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not good that they're doing it. What's good about it is that uh, if that person persists, the way I believe, I could be wrong about this, with investigation of that subject over time, and I don't think a long time anymore, uh, we'll pretty much know a lot of the bottom lines. But um, uh, but some of them were, like for instance, this whole idea of um, that one nationality uh, in the Middle East that, uh, um, well, I mean, what the Israeli nation has become with their war and their justifications for all their um, poor treatment of the area of the geography that they were taking over. That sure links to some of their heritage, but so what? Really, when it comes down to it, building everything on that heritage of that's their land, because Moses said so, and yet they're not going to do what Moses said about anything else hardly. And the things that they do about what Moses said uh, are, are mostly peripheral. They're ways around it all. And that's exactly what happened after Moses left to what was considered the 12 tribes of Israel. And that's why two of them broke off, and the next level took from Judah, the primary one that broke off, uh, um, uh, um, using that lineage in order to develop the ancestry that became Mary. But the reason why one of the reasons why that wasn't done, that Fatima event in 1912 or so, or whatever that was exactly, I don't remember, but wasn't from the creators of this planet and the life forms on it that Tiandou represented, I believe, on Earth, um, is because Mary wasn't an older member of the next level in the physical flesh. She might have been a potential younger member of the next level that was that came to this planet from the next levels, being in the next level's keeping, uh, either on ice or even may have had uh, I didn't get any indications that graduating from the Moses experiment gave you a next level vehicle. Maybe for some it did. Maybe for some that became the trusted helpers for Moses. Maybe they did graduate to get a elementary next level grown vehicle. And they may be the four souls that are talked about as the four living beings in the Book of Revelations. And then the last stream, or before that, I went through many times. I talked about how there's two different words for beast in the Revelation. They use both as beast, and one is zoon, and one is therion in the Greek, and they mean different things. One is a living being, and that's the way it's used in many contexts, and the other one is like a poisonous animal. That relates to the whole idea of the serpent, which isn't necessarily the creature that we call a snake. It's related. Doesn't mean that snakes are evil. And evil is a relative condition as well, but that a condition at the next level decides, humans don't, except for evil behavior. And evil behavior is identifiable by all, I believe. Although people can justify it because they think there's a greater good, sometimes there is a greater good. And sometimes the greater good is from the next level, but sometimes the greater good is not from the next level. And they've been tricked to think it's the greater good. Like the whole effort to try to find a way to fight against what they believe, some of them believe is space aliens from somewhere out there, like was talked about by Richard Blumenthal in on Cascade on that what was the name of C-SPAN that I recorded, but that's what the Space Force was all about, fighting against those from outer space. I mean, I'm not saying that they automatically are going to fight against them, but I don't think it's going to take much for them to decide that they don't want to take a chance that they're going to be destroyed if they can figure out ways of sending nukes towards the objects. And whatever they do, I feel rest assured that um, uh, next level is not going to be stopped from doing whatever they feel it's time to do. But you would think you kind of know that the weeds of the planet are those that don't believe it's the creators of the planet and the life forms on it, unless they've bought the lines of the space alien souls that have tried to insert that thinking that they, the ones that are seen often in spacecraft since the 40s, many of them, that they are actually creators, and that's also taken place in big ways, but in small numbers of the people that gravitate to different space alien souls interface with contactees, humans that they appeared to one or more times, uh, and or even let them be on the spacecraft to experience that. However, they might have drugged them or hypnotized them in some way, like with a beam of light or something. Um, uh, and and so all those individuals that are uh, working on their behalves of the different contactees are doesn't mean they're bad people. I'm not trying to say that. And they could be, from the next level's point of view, they may be growing in the best way that they can for what they've been, surrounded with and what they've accepted. Uh, that's something that we can't judge. So anybody that talks in those terms, in my opinion, shows you right away what they don't know. And that's a big chunk because they don't know that their way isn't the only way. Like Tian said, there's many paths to the top of the mountain. But there's only one way to get off that mountain, and then you have to be connected to somebody who's no longer part of the human kingdom. And it's hard to believe in them because We can't see them. We can't touch them. And even if they are in a physical vehicle, they still look like us and talk like us. And yet, if the person has been asking in some way, shape, or form, the next level sees to it that they give them help to find their way to a higher source of information than they had before. And that's what drives the quest that is the whole spiritual movement that's been going on for a long time, over and over again, throughout all the history that humans have. And before that, in different civilizations on Earth. No, who knows how many, but even many potentially, according to Doe. Doe didn't want to zero in on, at first in the Beyond Human series, he says that, he feels he has, I don't know how he said it exactly, the words. It is important to use the right words because um, he felt like he recognized that there was a previous civilization on the earth, a human equivalent civilization. But he didn't know if they got to Mars with their technology. Um, so, and he wondered if they did get to have the technology that humans were developing at the time that he was talking, what they did with the space junk. Which, when he said that, I thought, wow, that's kind of, for some reason, it's just like, I couldn't really see that as like being a prime question to bring up. I mean, I didn't think that way about it, but it just had an oddness to it to me. Because I guess because of my spiritual background of having this idea that God can do all things, and which is actually true, but that doesn't mean that they want to be in the condition or they want that they want to do certain things, so they don't do those things. And then there's things that uh, weren't designed to be controlled. I guess maybe that's one way to say it, but used. And so which I don't know, that all baffles my mind, but I believe there's some little shred of truth to some of that idea, but maybe it doesn't make any sense to anybody else. But that's okay. I'm not pretending that um, I'm that good at this, but I know I'm always kind of trying to broaden things, and that might be something that's, I don't know. Never mind. I don't need to judge it either. I'm doing it. This is my stream. I can say what I want. I'm only joking. I can't actually say what I want because sometimes I've had videos taken down that were talking about certain subject matter. So actor Michael Merchant's here, and yeah, we're doing okay. Thank you. And it would have been interesting to see if Doe was able to take advantage of this level of technology and social media, how Heaven's Gate reach would be different That's interesting. That is interesting. I need to think about that more because, and it's not that I don't actually, uh, but at the same time, I believe there is a value to making it hard for people to get to the next level information. I mean, not making it hard, not on purpose making it hard, but just because that's not at all part of the picture. But not making it too easy, because if it's too easy, then there's not enough filter. Is one way to maybe describe it, on the people that would be ready to go in this direction. Um, uh, More and more. Now, again, the next level doesn't need us to do that, but that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to be necessary for somebody to grow towards graduation. And and graduation doesn't mean leaving this vehicle by our own hand. It means moving into service to the next level, and and looking at the signs and what they taught about uh, how having human characteristics presents us with a unique way of accelerating the growth of our mind, so that and that being of service, if somebody is continuing to go in that direction, will come across the way that they thought that individuals would want to do, would be to share the information with others. Let me see what hello Finbar from Wales, UK. So, but yeah, actor Michael Merchant, I'm glad you brought that up, because we did get some pretty clear indications of how he was thinking about things. To me, they're clear, and and I think you can see them talked about in I forget which audio tape it was, but I believe it was 1996 or 1997. Um, which is interesting that I think we only got one tape that was from 1997. That was close to 2 months, I think, before their exit. But anyway, that's another subject I'm not going to get into now. But uh, but in that tape, that's the point of bringing up the tapes. Excuse me for my lapses of mind. But was that he was talking about uh, having a that he I have to give a little preliminary to this. This is after 1994, and he had a bunch of new students with him. That those students then went through uh, uh, a condensed form of what the class had gone through before them in terms of fasting and things like that. Okay, so they got an accelerated course in that, and and so he thought that as long as he still needed to be here, because he felt like he hadn't got a what he was requiring in his mind, um, was a physical confirmation from the next level that he was on the right track with thinking about preferring to leave with their vehicles, but willing to leave in other ways, even if that meant staying in the vehicle, uh, even if the vehicles get sick and die. Okay, and um, or die because of an accident, or die because somebody finds fault with them and wants to get rid of them, or from a natural disaster or whatever it would be. Um, so all right, let me. I don't see anything new in the chat. I always wondered about that too. Michael Merchant says Dead Skinner, and it says that I think Doe would have done well on here. You think so? If he was talking about uh, leaving everything of the human kingdom and and not uh, but that's including that's behaviors and ways and thinking, understanding, recognition of greater reality than the human kingdom. Because how can you have a greater reality over the human kingdom than from the individuals that created the planet and the life forms on it? Now, some people, I mean, I can understand that people are going to say that T and Do didn't represent them, the creators of the planet and the life forms on it. And I say I guess there's no proof of that. But then I would bring up then compared to everybody else that's talking about their point of view, does any one stand out in ways that would make some sense to being generated by individuals that are no longer human? Can humans imagine much about what it is to be not human? I think humans can. And that's what drives evolution. And that's like, for instance, kindness, uh, thoughtfulness, restraint, flexibility, thoroughness, um, uh, learning to recognize what they know and recognize what they don't know, and recognize where to go to learn what they want to know. And knowing that in their minds, the way to go to learn what they don't know is to seek that from their older member's mind. It can be a different older member in the next level than T and O, but the same relationship would exist. It would be a different relationship because of the different personality of every member of the next level. We all retain our core self, but it's not necessarily if we become members of the next level. I'm saying I haven't become a member of the next level that I'm aware of, so um, so I don't count myself as a member of the next level. I'm uh, a vehicle that had the experience, and so I'm a mind that had the experience of being in the classroom towards graduating into next level membership. But whether the soul that uh, was trying to take over this vehicle for that program is still around now, I would suspect at more of a distance. And distance is actually literal. Space has to do with um, how close somebody is to somebody else. But, I mean, the next level can be close to somebody through their I don't know if they can do that with their minds or they do that with computer systems or both. Uh, there's probably limitations within the physics of the systems that they use and the type of mind it is might have a lot to do with it. Maybe an older member can actually send some very clear thoughts that end up hitting the human environment and maybe literally breaking up in some way to being shot all over the place. Maybe that's what the asteroid belt does. It's a way of doing like a shotgun shot of mind whenever you're running something through it. I don't know. I'm just thinking a little crazy, I guess. I never heard T and O suggest that. People seem to be enjoy listening to him speak. Well, yeah, that's true. There are a number of people that had tell me that including Kathy, she likes to listen to Do talk and finds it soothing when she's troubled. And if she's not sleeping because her mind is racing too much, she'll put on a tape of Do. So, you know what? I've been doing all this talking and I didn't get to much of the tape. Because Do talks about having addictions fulfilled. In other words, humans are addicted to one another. Doesn't mean you're addicted to everybody. You know, we form our attachments to whoever we form attachments to, however temporary or however long lasting. And it doesn't mean it's a negative. It's just part of the territory um, to work through and choose the things that about the other person that you know you want to be exactly the same as. I guess I don't know exactly how to think of a certain thing, and the other person doesn't. Well, then they should both be able to do what they want to do. If it's not meaningful for them to do it, they may have options that they don't really care if they take or not, because they want to do things with the other person. But but you know, but these human vehicles that they split apart as the origin will find something to satisfy not having enough from the other half. Now that can be all kinds of other addictions, alcohol, tobacco. I'm not saying that any of these are bad. Drugs, pharmaceuticals included, of course, and you know, you know, Tino didn't feel like food was an addiction, but what you make of it, I guess, can become just another, people make it into an art form, right? And Tiendo weren't against making things attractive, making things interesting. They were for art, and let me put some examples of that because it links to what Doe was talking about in that 1996 or 1997 tape about if he was had to be here, that the only thing he could think of doing is at some level, in some ways. And at the time, he was specific and said he was thinking about whether we would go town to town and we'd form a show that could have music, could have lighting effects and things. And so this gets to what actor Michael Merchant was saying, or maybe it was someone else. I'm forgetting now. No, like Michael Merchant said about the what technology and social media Doe would have. It would be possible, since they did use the beginning of social media when we started being part of bulletin board services, and then after that, the Usernet. So we actually have examples of how he would be post. They would in 1995 they posted several documents to the Usenet, and one was Undercover Jesus Services Before Departure. Another one was extraterrestrials from that angle, from the more realistic angle, even though they weren't extraterrestrials the way that humans a lot of times think about extraterrestrials, meaning, I don't know, the word extra to me, I don't really relate to that, but I suspect that the next level had a hand in giving them that understanding. Uh, All the space aliens did, because their minds are present too. So they're also putting out their thoughts, and their thoughts, I don't think have even something anywhere near. Uh, well, I don't know how to compare the thoughts from T with the thoughts from Do with the thoughts that might be coming from the space aliens, except to say that whenever they try to second guess what the next level is going to do, the only thing they can do is produce a facsimile of what the next level is going to do. And the reason I can say that and think that I'm speaking based on what Tiendo gave us at that time uh, is because the next level even can see what the space aliens are doing and saying through their various ways of tapping into that and the technologies for it, um, and uh, and can let them do certain things, knowing that it can be used for this benefit in the human kingdom. Like I'll give you an example. While I was in the classroom, present in the meetings, and T and Do, and I've talked about this before. T and Do felt like Ross Perot was saying some things that they felt could be what the country needs. Somebody from a business background that had a successful business in Texas, just happened to be in Texas, and to run for president. And so while we were in the classroom, you know, probably for a few meetings, but I don't know if they were recorded or not. I don't remember now. You know, Tiendo throughout the tapes, you'll if you listen to many of them, you'll hear T talking about world or Do talking about world events occasionally. It wasn't that often. It wasn't like they were like preaching sermons based on the world events. They didn't do that. They didn't talk about the end of the world at all, except that there was going to be a recycling. You know, but they didn't even repeat that over and over again. In fact, I don't remember hearing it even once, really, or no, towards the last few years we were there when Doe was writing about it, like in the USA Today and other places where they put information, then yeah, then it was being talked about. But in the limited way that they did, which gets to the other part of the idea of what Doe would do with the public, because everybody's not ready for certain steps at the same time. This is the most difficult step, actually, I believe, you can take in the human kingdom to think that somebody else has the key to graduating from the human kingdom of life into a new kingdom. We've only had the science fiction ideas about that. But the next level was working with those people that were developing the science fiction books and videos and documents. Sometimes, in some ways, that, but the humans still have to translate it into the ways that they get that information. And so, like The Sound of Music was an example of uh, a movie T and O felt was uh, like many movies, but like E.T. and Close Encounters, and they feel like the next level had influence over those movies in some ways, shapes, or forms, and I'm not sure I can say what forms were not from their minds. I mean, certainly if they were to put a romantic scene, like in the Close Encounters, you know, that was of any depth, you know, or any physicality, that wouldn't have been part that the next level would really have an interest in portraying in that kind of a movie. That would be my guess about that. Not to say that that couldn't be a part of a movie that the next level has influence over. I'm not saying that's not the case, but you're not going to have. You're definitely not going to have porn in a next level stimulated movie. I mean, even if somebody is showing, you know, like sex scenes and even a little flesh uh, for a period of time, you know, that doesn't mean that the next level wasn't in that movie with part of their mind that the humans were pulling on. They're not knowing that they're pulling on it. Looking for new ideas on how to do something and how to portray something, the next level can give them a little idea about how to shape the head of that alien or, you know, what kind of, how the spacecraft's going to look in their imagery. And that can all be accurate in some degrees to what a spacecraft can look like. But then they're probably not going to have spacecrafts that are operating on fossil fuels. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But I think they have more sophisticated fuels, and that's what drives people, you know, because the space aliens want those more sophisticated forms of energy desperately, because they know that the people that um, in their accumulation of rumors and word of mouth, so to speak, in their culture, in their generation of ancestry of the physical bodies that those minds were growing within, uh, uh, they they are influencing humans to believe that technology exists, and then when they're given evidence of it, like through crashes and things, then all the more reason, you know, like why would the space aliens crash a spacecraft on purpose? If the next level hadn't crashed some spacecraft on purpose, like the one in the plains of San Augustine called Roswell and the one in Aztec, New Mexico, the two that I'm most suspect of or even clear of, I just want to say it that way to not be overconfident about it because it took a long time to be to say it in that way, specifically related to those crashes. Um, anyway, that's another story. But well, I wanted to jump back to something else I was trying to get to in this um, live stream. But I don't know if we're back to another place. Now I'm beginning to lose what place I was going to in the first place. But I think I'll get back to it if I go back to the tape. Yeah, I'll go there. I'll see anything happening. Did Tian ever say anything about the folks in Jonestown when that incident happened? That was 1978, right? Um, I was aware of it, and I don't remember much about that. We were living in the campgrounds in the national forest and on private ranch lands in Wyoming and Colorado. And 1978, if I remember correctly, um, we were going between the winters in like San Antonio, Texas area, southern Texas area, and the summers in Wyoming and northern Colorado area. Back and forth for uh, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79. About 80, we were still living in tents. So that's 6 years approximately. And then, uh, and that's approximately when T&O had us move into houses. Anyway, so I don't know. So anyway, so during that time, we did have a TV and we did watch the news. And I just don't have a clear memory of it being talked about Jonestown when it happened. But I do remember in the Mysterious 2 movie, at least the first one that came out, I think the cover of it was the not the actual hardcover of it, but the sleeve showed a picture from Jonestown of the bodies laying on top of each other. But later on, uh, but uh, but it was interesting that some people, like depicted in the book UFO Missionaries Extraordinary, written from interviews that were done with T&O by Hayden Hughes and Brad Steiger and David Garcia from different times of those interviews. One being in 1974, and the next being in 1976, as I understand it. Uh, the book that was published in '76 depicts that there were some parents, I think, of somebody who joined with T&O that was worried that they were going to commit the S word, self-exit. But but I didn't join thinking that. It never occurred to me when I did hear about it. They didn't shield us from the news. We had the news every day when we were in campgrounds. At one point, it might have been a year after we gathered in. I don't know if it was even that much. We were traveling around, and they encouraged us to go to libraries and keep up with the news, because they said that through the news you would find out, you'd get some indication of what would happen in the demonstration. They talked about performing a demonstration of a repeat performance of what Jesus did. A death and resurrection. And I can talk all about why that didn't happen and how to think about it in next level ways of thinking about it. And but I think I did in the last tape or two. If you want to, maybe I don't know if a transcript ever gets made of these, because I don't try to get them, but uh, but I could talk more about that part of it. But they did have her. Let's see. My only sense of it, and I don't know if I got this right, and maybe Carlotti heard something about it when he was in the class when I wasn't. Uh, that there could be a tape that talks about it that I don't have. So with that said, I'm just going to say that just because those individuals uh, chose to lay down their vehicles, or to the degree that they were not forced at all or coerced, at all, or or set up for, and they were, I believe. But regardless, that doesn't mean that the next level didn't take those souls for a future opportunity, because they could have easily been doing the best that they could do. And that's to be said about everybody. We can't judge people. But that doesn't mean that there weren't bad things done that were wrong to do. But humans don't have the right to stimulate the loss of another human's life. But if a human wants to give their life to somebody else, or an idea or something, that's the prerogative of the human. That's service of the highest kind. Like Jesus said, that the greatest love is somebody that would give their life for their fellow person. And that's not an easy place to be in. I mean, you can, but you can have that as uh, recognize that as the highest form of love, um, without being on a downer, because you don't know if you would give your life for somebody else. You might surprise yourself. Um, what you might do when you see somebody, uh, let's say you're somebody that would save an animal from suffering. It would, even to a degree of, you know, take that animal to be with them. And even, you know, uh, I mean, that's not, you know, that's a part of the consciousness of a human. Another stage of that would be somebody that wants to, believes there's nothing wrong with using animal products, but doesn't agree that with the methods that are used, and just having that disagreement when it goes to many people then can become a force to improve the way that animals are treated. Okay, so to me that would be going in a next level direction of not taking advantage of life. And Doe demonstrated that by only cutting certain boughs of, of branches off of the trees that were going to be overhanging the tent that could be brought down by the snow when we were camping outdoors in Provo, Utah, in the mountains just south of Provo during the winter, during part of the winter. I think it was either the end of it, I think it was the tail end of it. Anyway, because he didn't want to uh, disturb the environment, that he didn't need to disturb that environment for a greater good. Okay, so yeah, uh, we can use everything on this planet for some form of greater good for somebody, right? You can say that. Um, but using humans for some greater good, that's where the line is crossed. That's one of the lines across there. But that doesn't mean that somebody, like I was saying before, couldn't want to have that service of serving another human to the degree of giving their life for them. But that doesn't mean to me going and offing yourself and saying you're doing it for anybody. Self-exiting, I don't think is um, uh, well. We need these vehicles in order to outgrow and grow our strength of mind from, and that's what it says in the position against the S word and against self-exiting on the Heaven's Gate website. And at the same time is if we're not growing towards the next level, then we're committing that S word in terms of the soul, potentially. And that's all like degrees and it's changeable and it's got, you know, different characteristics of what would be defined as somebody that's not, because you could not even know about Tiando, just to give you the most direct example. And the next level could see that you're separating from the human kingdom in your own way, and therefore identify you as a spirit, mind, soul that when you do lose your vehicle, you're going to take that they're going to take that soul and store it, like put it on ice, is the way Doe kind of said about it. We're not trying to be technically accurate about it because he said it wasn't literally ice, but he didn't feel to try to explain what it might be in the storage because he had ideas about stuff that he didn't necessarily share with people, or at those moments, you know, when I heard it, he could have shared it with people during the time I wasn't there. And it might not have even made it onto tape because it didn't come up during the tapes. Anyway, Dead Skin Mask says, thank you for answering. I appreciate it. I think about those folks a lot. Yeah, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if that after that happened, as well as um, what happened to the Branch Davidians, as well as others, Ruby Ridge people, and I don't know who else off the top of my head, but and any humans actually that are persecuted and lives or some part of them, you know, eh, because of the negative forces that are doing the best they can. The next level has ways of giving special help to everybody. Everybody, literally everybody, can get their help. But we got to ask, and it's not going to be it's going to be a serious asking, and they know how to determine our asking, and they know whether we have thirst in our asking. I feel like I show some of that energy in the way I talk about this. That's why I talk louder, because I feel like I'm putting more energy through my vehicle to talk about the next level the way it is. I say it is. I know that, you know, people can say, well, how do you know? And of course I can't prove it. And I don't really want to know how it is. If it isn't, I don't get anything from it. Well, what if, you know, the voices can say, well, what if what you think about Doe is not really true? Well, what I say to that is the same thing that Doe said about it, which makes sense to me, is that this has the best information in one spot and with such a broad overview and such goodness in it in the way that people treat each other and think towards each other that I can't imagine what other goodness there could be because it fulfills all the good parts of the human kingdom. But that doesn't mean that I mean And there's a lot of good parts of the human kingdom. I'm not the one that decides. Well, except when you're abusing somebody or hurting somebody or trying to manipulate somebody or willing to lose do something to have them lose their life against their will, um, and like has done many people. It's like, well, you may be a dead Skinner. You may be on a strain of mind in some way, shape, or form related to those people, related to their strain of mind. That's what we're talking about. I'm not talking about whether you're in a African American or Cuban American or dark skinned vehicle, with that pigment difference and other biology differences, I'm sure. Like we all have a lot of differences, even within the same race. There's a lot of differences in the races. But that's not what I mean entirely by strain. What I mean more so is the strain of mind, the thinking, um, that develops with the strains of the biology. Because the mind is developing as we speak. It doesn't mean it's developing in a good way, but it's becoming something else constantly, or it's fostering the same ideas constantly. By not being open to or going in the direction of different ideas, not being led to, because you don't want to know sometimes. But when things are hard and when things are difficult to know the truth about, and when you're starting to recognize more and more how many lies are being told, and then that's what builds our minds stronger to actually, when the truth is talked about, being open to hearing more of it. But then what happens after that is then when the forces against the next level that don't want individuals to become members of the next level because they want them to become members of their heaven, their elevated area, wherever they are with their spacecrafts, for as long as they can have them, or working for them even more so because they don't want them crowded onto their spacecrafts and influencing them because they know that they're probably not going to get along in a lot of ways. Literally, this is more the reality of what's going on, I believe, and so they are trying to steal souls because next level plants all these deposits of these chips, computer chips that are like part of the genetic structure that have mind with them, understanding with them. They have certain realizations, certain knowledge with them, according to what they accumulated in the past that came down through the genes and then was built up again by all the minds that were current in that part of the civilization, to where then the genes are changing also, or getting deeper into their base nature. And if you get into the base nature more and more, then you have people acting like animals. And you see that when people um, wanting to destroy another human being or wanting to mistreat another human being. That's not animalistic in terms of real animals, because the real animals aren't conscious that they're doing that. They're doing that as part of their instincts, to devour another animal. Okay, and their need, that's the program they have, and it doesn't mean that there aren't parts of that. They're still learning things from that. I mean, the mind is developing potentially from those experiences, and they can, I believe, grow into um, more civilized living, and that's what domesticated animals are, to where they're being satisfied with their animalistic nature of wanting, fresh meat, for instance, like in a zoo. And so, even though the zoo may not seem like it's doing uh, something beneficial, can be something beneficial to the animal species to have that relationship with humans, to where they're being fed by the humans and maybe supplied with some friends and mates and to fulfill their genes. But that and they may get a lot of pleasure when they get a treat from the humans. You know, uh, and then at the same time they could still have their animal nature, to where if you cross them in some way, or they have some change in their biology, or their brain from became more toxic in some way, to where they, like you hear stories about somebody had a pet gorilla that bites their face off. It's like, wow. Anyway, I know I went down a thread there. Tried to anyway. So that's definitely worth considering for sure. Yeah, a dead skin mask. There's a bunch of ways of thinking about it, probably. I mean, I understand the story, and I know a lot of the truth has come out. Except says, from what I understand, everyone is on their own stages and levels of growth. Some people are not ready to be unplugged and understand what the kingdom of God really is. The next level knows who they all are. Yeah, in one way or another, their system, I think, identifies um, who's ready for what. But people can become ready very quickly, I believe. I don't think it takes that much. Uh, but for some people, it's going to be harder than others, and they have to be motivated. And there's probably it's like T and Doe were saying that the next level. Well, Doe was saying, which I believe he was saying it with his older member's mind coming through him, using his older member's mind and understanding and knowledge. By they don't have it like a channel. They're actually having to do the struggle of figuring out how to talk about everything. But they get a sense of what's true and what's not, and how to describe it becomes their task to describe it. So in that way, the information is tuning down to us by Doe being in a human vehicle that is is limited to certain thinking overall. But within that limitation, there's a variance on what people are ready for. And somebody's not going to go after thinking about what the kingdom of God really is until they're faced with certain aspects of it. And I think that's what the whole space alien crashes are ultimately one of the biggest benefits to it. And also even the humans that are perpetrating hoaxes, like with drones and stuff, that can be also happening simultaneously with space aliens doing the same kind of thing with their spacecrafts. But they wouldn't be drones, they'd be their spacecrafts. Or making holograms, so they could be drones. Maybe they can make a hologram of a spacecraft appear on the screen, on the screen of our atmosphere. If they can do the Lady of Fatima, now we don't know how much that image that those young girls saw really looked like the Virgin Mary, but the Catholics were very into the Virgin Mary. And so they had statues of what she looked like. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if they appeared to look like one of those statues uh, um, with the idea, with the thoughts associated with that image that those space alien souls would be projecting in that through their hybrid vehicles and even people in the area. I don't know about that part, but yeah, even the people in the area could be affected by that of believing that story, right? And and the prophecy of it and all, and even seeing things happen that fulfill those prophecies. That can all be part of it. It'll be part of the space alien seeing one of their tasks that they're trying to do in order to control humans and get them off the track of seeing reality. That doesn't mean that the person that believes in the Virgin Mary and is in the Catholic school or whatever it is doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that at all. They could have succeeded in 6 lessons out of 10, or 7, or 8, or 9, or whatever it is, and have some things really down well in their self control and everything. Okay, and their primarily their devotion to God, what they believe is God, or Jesus, or Krishna, or Buddha, or um, Allah. Uh, I don't know if Muhammad is. I know he's respected, and they give thanks to Muhammad, and so I that's not. I mean, there's characteristics of the people in Islam that are very next level, and there's characteristics among Christians that are very next level. There's characteristics among some Jews like as well. I didn't mean to say some in the other cases as well. It's the same sums. And they're the ones that are going to be protesting against the wars and protesting against humans enslaving other humans and protesting against the uh, the forces that dominate the planet, which is the lower forces dominate the planet. But that doesn't mean that each individual that's enacting that degree of lower force is evil. See, it's just, we don't need to go there. The behavior is evil. We see that and we want to change it. Fine. I think that's great to want it to be changed. And to not be complaining about it and even thinking that way to me is sending out thoughts in that direction. And we know that thoughts exist and that they're real and that Tiendo believed that they were of value and that they do accumulate and that good prevails over evil in terms of its strength, but evil has more numbers of human beings that are mostly filled with the lack of next level mind. And so evil at that point becomes those that the next level will recycle. We just don't know who that is. And it's a waste of time to actually pin it on somebody, because even if somebody says something terrible, does something terrible, it doesn't mean that the next level doesn't forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. If they knew what they were doing, they wouldn't be doing it when they abuse somebody. I mean, that's a hard place to take if you've been a victim of abuse. I don't know if I would take it if I was a victim of certain abuse, because what would be in wanting to dominate one's mind is hatred towards the individual that did abuse, and wishing bad things on him. And I've tasted of that, and I don't like it. And so I'm not going to entertain those thoughts. But I even tasted entertaining those thoughts. But I also, at the same time, I'm not talking about harming anybody physically. Um, by the way, not in any shape or form, or even messing with somebody with lies and deceit and manipulation. No, never. I hope never. I say I hope because I know that it's a struggle to not justify sometimes. But there is no justification for hurting another human being. It's better for the individual to lose their life than to take someone else's. It's not going to look better to the other humans, like if you're in a battle. But if you're not willing to be in the battle, then don't sign up for the war. Or hope that you can get out of it and sign in, just for the benefit of the schooling, or and then get out of it. I hope that you can not be in a capacity to where you're actually making decisions like that are life and death over people. But even if you were assigned to something like that, it doesn't mean that the next level throws you away if the next level sees that you've got goodness in you. Because even recognizing that that's a terrible thing that somebody might have participated in to some degree is a sign that they've got next level mind about it. And it's the lower forces that would have them dwell on that to the degree that they don't feel like they're worthy of having anything good happen to them. And it can entail serving those you hurt, even in a general basis. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And and so you'll see a bunch of homeless people that are also they help with the food kitchens, or but, and they do things in the communities sometimes, and other times they go on a binge. Sometimes they have a place to stay, sometimes they don't. I agree that see, the whole thing, it's not greed for greed's sake that the lower forces stimulate the the justifications in one's mind of those politicians, that they're doing some benefit to people by having them find other ways to survive by having food to eat than by getting it from the government. Some of them have that awareness in their minds, uh, and they've used that to justify, like, taking away food stamps. And of course, then they're linking it to So this this shutdown might be uh, the basis of um, both sides being aware that they want to appear a certain way to their constituents. And so they want to hold out as long as possible to show that they had the strength of mind to do that. And maybe they don't want to give into it ever and have a solution. But, I mean, why the heck can't you have a solution, Trump? Why can't you work on something right now to help with the subsidies that are going to be lost that you said you were willing to talk about? Why does it have to be after a pressure tactic? If that's even that much in contention. We don't know that they don't all want to have as much money as they can to pay for their machine to fight against all the lower forces in the world that want to kill them and others, and all the lower forces in the world that are in competition with them and aren't having anybody else's interest in things except to where they can run the show in their countries, to support all their families and friends, and constituents enough to where they're not looked up as criminals, or going against them. They all have that kind of relationship with people. And so if they can get something out of the other side of the coin, then why not fight for it? But but then, I mean, at what point should it be a referendum? Whether the government gets funded or not, uh, and what the conditions would be. Maybe we just need to go to the ballot box and all get to vote on what's done with the money. They'll never let that happen. They don't. It's not really it's not a democracy, a true democracy, where everybody has a voice. You have a voice, what, once every 4 years or every 2 years? A little bit of a voice and a little bit of a C. We're like, numbers on the page, right? And now you don't even know how much those numbers are manipulated by either side. Because there's a lot of agreement among them. But, the whole global warming thing, being from carbon dioxide, uh, I can't believe that they still want to fight for that. But they've got so many people already, well, I feel brainwashed to some degree. But, a lot of brainwashing takes place because people were given funds to promote different things and to write papers on certain things and to make websites on certain things and influence people on the internet with certain ways of thinking. Not just bots, but yeah, bots too. And that's happening big time as well. I'm sure they're using AI to, be the driving force behind putting certain ideas out there. I don't know how much human observation there is. I think there is, but when something surfaces that, they could be prosecuted for, gets away from them, that somebody either said or did, uh, sometimes they have scapegoats for it. Sometimes they pay a fine. Sometimes they get thrown out of political office. Sometimes they lose in the stock market. Sometimes, things can happen. They get blacklisted by the others that are on their team because they didn't go along enough. and then they could get assassinated, if they don't go long enough, and or attempted to, you know, and you see basically two different space alien groups or more, because they can be allies with each other too, even indirectly, not necessarily working on the same things at all with humans. Um, but that's why uh, what's considered the Reds and the Blues are at odds with each other so much. Is because neither side actually has a grasp uh, on a lot of reality of what this world is and this kingdom is, this human kingdom is, and who it belongs to, and what, how are they gonna, uh, potentially be in better standing with who it belongs to, because they think that the space alien, that the next level are just another space alien group that has better technology than they do. That they may have actually created the Earth, but they did so with technology, which is true. But the way they're thinking about it is it's just technology that they have access to by just doing of it. In other words, going out and finding elements that can be made into, anti-gravity machines, things like that, for example, like on Ceres, whatever elements are there that appear to be very energetic, hyper-allergetic, no, hyper-energetic. Except says all I can do is look after my own personal growth in what I study. Right, I hear you. It took me, I don't know how many years to figure things out that way, but better late than never, as some say. Absolutely. It's always better late than never, in my opinion, when it comes to seeking the highest, you know, uh, direction to at least intend to grow in, to recognize, and then put it into motion in all the ways that you choose to all the degrees that you choose to. If it means, getting not addicted to things, uh, then that's great. I think it's great. I think it's a benefit to not have to do something that can have a lot of detrimental effects all the time. And there's everything in moderation according to the Buddhists. And I'm not saying that Tian don't have a certain amount of that as well. They know that the human kingdom, like Do talked about, that knowing what he knew, if he had to stay in the human kingdom the way it is, that he'd have to be drunk. So, that's not. He's not saying that he wants to be drunk, but he'd have to do something to kind of redirect his mind into uh, uh, not dealing with reality so much. In terms of what's happening in the world, because there's so many things happening in the world that are terrible, and so what you can do about it is next to nothing. But I mean, you can affect it, or you can affect other people from how to not misjudge something, not to put their energy behind something that may be just as bad as what you're thinking is evil or wrong, because it's probably in degrees. that different things in different ways of looking at things have their goodness versus their badness. I mean, it's one thing for a government to think that they need to have tough love by taking away our benefits. And Kathy and I haven't been on any benefits. Not because I didn't want to and I would have taken them, but because I don't have a stable address, a street address. And Kathy doesn't want to go through all the forms and what you need to say on those forms because, in a sense, sometimes you know you're not going to actually be ready to be totally truthful because you know that they've got limits and what they're going to whether they're going to help you or not based on your income. And if you just relied on what their minimum is, nobody could live in this world without that. But then it can help people live within their means better. And it can help people gather together and live more communally so that they can, and see, that's one of the things that comes out of all disasters, I think, can come out of them. That people gain more compassion. And it's more right down to the bare bones of survival physically. And helping each other is a big part of that, to where it's like, you know, I'll just keep on pushing the vehicle and hopefully, and I'll help others do it too. And like if you're in like the hurricane, I'm thinking of the hurricane in Jamaica. You can see that, a lot of the wood and metal and that was making up people's houses, they got to get them and hopefully there'll be donations of nails and building materials and things especially by the religious community, because that's what some of the government has been saying for a long time is that the religious need to and put their money where their mouth is. Well, you have people that talk about God in the politics, so what God doesn't care for the stranger, care for those that are needy. It was certainly in the Judeo-Christian Islamic God, there are those characteristics. And so the people, the people, it's up to each individual what they're going to become and what they're going to do. Hyper Baroque. Oh, gosh. No, I'm not saying Hyper Baroque that humanity has no saving graces. Not at all. Humanity has all kinds of next level mind in it, in each of the individuals. Um, so I don't know. I'm not saying humanity is a scourge. Uh, it is a gift that we are all alive and that we have the choices to make. That's where the gift is, and the gift is expansive. It relates to uh, all the ways that the next level has given their mind to the human kingdom. Because this is like 12 grades in school. So one grade would be to not kill other humans. Okay, that's like the sixth grade. But so you can stay in the sixth grade and just not kill any humans. In that way, you will be living up to that sixth grade classroom. But that doesn't mean that you're going to become a seventh grader or an eighth grader or a ninth grader or a 10th grader or 11th or 12th, to where you're at the point of being ready to, that this place, you don't like this place anymore. I'm getting like that more and more. I'm getting like that more and more. I just don't, not getting, uh, and maybe I just need to give more. Maybe I need to be associated with people that are giving more to others. And maybe I mean, there's a lot of things I could grow to do that are better than the way I am. I'm sure of that. So Hyper Brooks says, I increasingly view the human race as a manufactured weapon. Whatever strange beings brought about our existence were more concerned with causing harm and destroying life than proving life sacred. Um, yeah, I understand that. I I agree with that. It has been uh, made into a type of weapon that, but also within it, in a big way, even bigger than that manufactured weapon, is the next level mind that knows that's a manufactured weapon and sees the way that's being used as a weapon. In other words, the way I'm interpreting that is that not by the way that some people interpret it. Like some people would think that they get more and more humans on the planet. That means that more and more resources are being used. And so therefore, uh, um, or that humans are using humans like to promote certain diseases and maybe even let those monkeys out of that truck that turned over and let monkeys that were infected with COVID and hepatitis and some other disease, AIDS or something, out of their cages. Um, so some people think that the human kingdom uh, is um, self-destructing, and there's some truth to that. But that doesn't mean everybody in the kingdom, because the way that self-destructing works, from my understanding, is that the souls, uh, the ones that whether are the space alien souls, gradually, but it can happen pretty quick also, lose sight of the distance of growth between them and the individuals that they thought of as their older members when they were in that department. Now, see, since they don't have that same vehicle that they had while they were conscious on a next level spacecraft doing tasks for them, they don't have that memory that goes with that. But they do have what they learned from that and about that in their minds. So, and what comes with that is a certain recognition of events that are on the docket. Because the next level's been working with this civilization and the previous one, and Doe felt like even many civilizations on this planet, like I started to talk about in the beginning of the live stream. So they know the way they're going to think, and that they're going to try to take the space alien souls are going to take over the planet. And how are they going to do that? By running all the leaders, by by developing, uh, helping them have what they want, and helping them gain the kind of vehicles and surrounding themselves with vehicles that support their vision. And run for political office or build a corporation, whatever they do to, that they can influence a lot of people by, even help them have a successful, uh, you know, um, I don't know, what size Hollywood career, okay, to where they have a lot of influence over people. Somebody that has a great stature can say that I support this person, and thousands or even millions of fans will vote for that person because of that, or vote against that person because of that. That kind of influence on people is increased. It's stimulated from two directions that are ultimately from the first direction. Ultimately, they're from the misinformation mind on this planet. I can go through all the particulars of what's misinformation. Like I'll give you an example that I believe is misinformation. That if you believe on a savior and uh, and die believing on that savior and live by a certain moral code, you will go to heaven to be with that savior, and that's the extent of your belief. And the rest of it, along with those kind of thinking, that kind of thinking, is not wanting to tune into it. Okay, uh, and so that means they can, they stick to their own moral things that they believe in. And if they don't want to stick to those things, then they go to a different religion that maybe allows those moral things to happen. And has more reasons for it. Uh, and morals, we're not talking about, sex. It's actually, even though sex is uh, it's part of the human kingdom, it's part of the animal kingdom, and it's got its value, but it's also an addiction that uh, you can't carry over into next level. But you don't know how much you're carrying it over to the next level, um, because there's degrees of behaviors according to the person that the next level judges, uh, um, to where that's not necessarily a condemnation on the person to becoming a member. It is to becoming a member of the next level. It has to be overcome enough. Because the lower forces have ways of, well, um, I don't know, influencing us to think in certain ways. Like for instance, you're also not going to get into the next level if you're overlording on people against their will. Even if they're working for $1 a day and they can barely get by, and you can afford to pay them more and just have a little less money for your bank account savings, then you're working against people to some degree, and that can be all justified as, well, they have to make their own. They have to, get a job, another job. They have to get an education. They're just not, they can say what they want to say. A lot of times when people get a lot, they give to charity, and that's how they justify having a lot and some people having nothing, that they're doing their share to help. And I'm not saying they're not, because I'm not anybody's judge, but they may be doing the best they can for their circumstance. And the next level space aliens that are behind them, uh, that the next level can even know is happening in the way it's happening, and not trying to change it directly, but allowing it to happen, and they know that everybody can get growth from it, uh, because of seeing through it when it takes place, and you see that it doesn't bring forth the fruit of the next level behaviors and ways. So things go south uh, in ways to where a human can, um, uh, well, you could be at odds with people, or you can realize that we have different characteristics to overcome. And so uh, let's um, learn how to be tolerant if we think we got something right, and be not so confident also if we think we got something right, and think that there might be another reason why what I was thinking um, uh, wasn't the best course of action to take in any given circumstance. It's judgment. We can think we have good judgment and not really have very good judgment. Begins to become so overconfident. And of course, some people that are doing things like hyper baroque, I think, uh, well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, I just I don't really, wouldn't really say it as a biological weapon, though. I think humanity is used as a biological weapon. I think, in some ways, like another way is by having a motivation for lots of deceased fetuses and babies in order to um, learn to grow organs or extract hormones from, or whether there are other things that there are to be gained from that. Um, and that, and in a sense, that can be used as a weapon. In other words, to encourage more than maybe is good to encourage, because it stimulates people to uh, not have restraint in certain areas. And the next level is built on restraint, so that everything in the human kingdom is available to go into, but if we don't have restraint in the way we do it, well, we're going to end up getting the ramifications of that kind of automatically. That's what I was talking about before, where you kind of lose perspective of things that are um, the thinking, behaviors, and ways, concepts, and attitudes, and knowledge, and wisdom, and intellect, and of the next level members, and all the other words that you can use to paint them as good and really good at what they do. But that doesn't mean that uh, they spend any time trying how to grow a radish from scratch, or making a new seed. But maybe there is a department that is seeing things wrong with that, you know, that they can improve upon. There can be labs for everything on the earth. Not necessarily the same lab can be working on a lot of different things. And you might not need a lot of labs to work on that. So XF says, well, if 3i Atlas comes here and wipes out the human race, humanity asked for it, when you look at its track record, in a sense. Well, yeah, if that's what happens with Atlas, or if that's the forerunner to what happens next year or the year after that, or even in the spring, who knows what things Atlas is still going to do that defies the current observational intelligence of humans. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right, to us whether humanity asked for it or not. It's the way that humanity was the result of that's why I say that everybody's born in sin. There's a truth to that, but that doesn't mean. And so we're repeating that, but it's not a sin anymore to the degree that I mean the goal is that we trust our older member and we look to your older member to the older member to help us in every way. That's the way I believe. And that's what T&O talked about. So that is the correction of the human race. And so if the next level, if that's what the harvest means, if those are the roses in the rose grower's garden, where he or she is growing prize roses, then uh, then everything else that's not saved for a future opportunity becomes the chaff, becomes the what's recycled. And is anything lost by that? No, because that chaff ends up having some function probably. I don't know if it does or not, but if it doesn't, then maybe it just becomes a gas that dissipates. Like a plasma kind of gas that ends up gradually fading and fading and fading into where it's part of the dust. Like they said, crawl in the dust of the earth. But yeah, I believe that everybody does get their karma, but that doesn't mean that it's the same exact karma at the same exact time and in the same degree. Because there are people that the next level that have caught the eye of the next level and are in their own way, however they caught the eye of the next level, even if they didn't know about Tiendo. And so the next level is going to be helping them. And now others can get help too. Even the space aliens can help some, but and in different ways. Sometimes the way that the help comes is knowing what's not true, what doesn't make sense, what doesn't seem real, what seems to be manipulation and abuse, and like for instance, taking somebody on board a spacecraft against their will out in the middle of the night, out of their house, physically and or mentally, if they can do it just mentally, I don't know, and having them have sex with another physical being, that's not next level behavior. Next level, the laboratory for the next level's human kingdom is in the human kingdom. It's not on board their spacecrafts because just like humans, when they raise animals and those animals are relating to each other in order to have new animals, uh, they don't do well in captivity. It's like they need to be in their environment. And that's why it's so hard for them to get certain animals to mate with each other in the zoos. But they probably figure it out, and then they bring in other animals to try to, see if there's a difference. And there sometimes is a difference, I believe. But so the next level doesn't do that. If they want to, they can zero right into anything they want to see is happening. And they can even use humans that want to be in their service as their cameras and as their uh, ears if they want to get into it to that degree. And then I guess they have ways of translating into, into the next level language of understanding from what humans think, the way that humans think, because these thoughts, I don't think, are encoded into the mind database to look like the words. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is some kind of sequence that looks like the words, but I think it's the image of what they say an image is worth 1,000 words. Well, I think it's the image that can convey a whole picture. So if the next level sees somebody, let's say, thinking about uh, astrophysics, and they're in a laboratory, they have the capacity to do things in their experimentation, then the next level has a way of giving that individual an idea of a direction to take when they're looking for an idea of a direction to take. And the space aliens can also do that. But the space aliens don't do it necessarily in the same way that the next level would, because the next level bases the way they do things on their current knowledge and information and instructions and guidelines. But the space aliens only have whatever they're reaching for as their source. So if that source is limited to, like, they may have abducted humans to work in their labs underground, and and maybe Dulce or whatever, who knows where, but I know they're working with alien technology from people from other planets originally, and so the next level, so the lower forces, the space alien souls, that's how they would get people that had those skills. Because they don't have those skills unless they were in that department in the next level. And then they would only have the beginner understanding about what was going on in those departments, if that was the department that the next level gave them to be in. But I don't think they were in those departments, because I think you have to be on pretty solid ground in the next level to be in those departments, in my opinion, because they don't want people that are going to mess stuff up. And but being like assigned to like a watcher or an observer of parts of the human kingdom, that's like that's one of the most elementary lessons or opportunities for service, because it's not the only elementary, like the only it would be. See, even that's not robotic, because people are going to go through their own computers and devices that they have, if they have devices on spacecrafts, while they're doing that kind of observation. Then to decipher what they're observing, because they can only see certain spectrum of the light spectrum and the sound spectrum. They can only they can only measure certain parts of the sound spectrum, and measure them in a way and interpret them in ways that can relate to other things, like even how to develop a certain material. Because let's say there was an older member that was in the lab of energy and knows about substances that make magnets look like little tinker toys that can be turned on and off by another element when it's present to produce enormous energy, like splitting an atom but not having uh, it go just wild to where it's spreading out all those particles all over the planet. So let's say they have that experience. Well, then if they're sent to the human kingdom to either do a task with humans to where they're physically close and they're bringing that same vehicle that they have. If they're capable, if they've grown to be able to even have more than one vehicle, they could have another their one vehicle doing something else in the lab in the next level, while part of their mind comes to the planet and uh, and even takes over a human vehicle that they think can be capable of translating what they know, enough about what they know, and have with them in that mind uh, to the humans. And I was picturing that as T, because Doe felt like T did have more than one next level vehicle. And I was thinking, let's say T had a task to come that she knew it was time to support Doe's awakening, and then work with him leaving, and then working with, like it talks about in Revelation 12, where the woman leaves by being gobbled up by the earth. In other words, goes into the grave. The earth opens its mouth. That was the way that was talked about in those days, in that Revelation 12. So let's say they agreed ahead of time that she was going to leave ahead of them. They're not really she's, because they don't have gender. Uh, so uh, then, and that he would take over from there, and that he was going to have to pull in her mind along with what he learned from her in her behaviors and ways and the way her mind thought, which is what these tapes keep on showing us, that he recognized was the same thinking that he has when he's in his older members, when he's at the next level, when he's not in a human vehicle. Because he's limited, Doe brought his whole mind with him to be in, but he left the vehicle that he had in the next level in a closet, he said. That's the way he would say it. Because he wasn't trying to be technically correct on the description of that closet. Because he knew that if a student was more interested in all that technical stuff, that they wouldn't stay a student for very long. Because there would be a point to where they weren't able to give them any more technical stuff because they don't have a brain that stuff can be brought through, or they just don't have instructions to provide that true information to the humans because they don't want the humans to have the capacity to do certain things before they're given that capacity by the next level. Because the humans would use it and the space aliens would use it in ways to against the human beings from growing to separate from their humanness. The parts of their humanness that are addictive to others. Because no matter what relationship we have, we should want to have our own sense of identity, our own sense of making our own choices. And sure, compromise is part of that. But we want to have autonomy for ourselves. Uh, if things aren't going in the direction that we want them to go or we hoped it would go, then, there's things that can come from that. But it doesn't mean automatically mean this or that. It just means that, and the reason I talk about that in that context is because I'm not saying that, I'm talking about in the context of an addiction to somebody else. To where, if they left you, you'd die from loneliness. When you might be, upset for a while, but then you'd probably get back on the horse and seek some ways to have what you want out of life. And I think that would be like if somebody dies that somebody loves, then sure, it could be difficult. And it probably would be in some ways if you were very close and you lived together and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean it's the end of that other person's life. They can not allow themselves to be happy again. Um, and but positive can come out of that. But it takes effort and it might take time. Oh, it's going to take time probably if there was a true addiction there. I don't mean addiction in a negative way. I mean in a way that Jesus was talking about it, like love your neighbor as yourself. You know, because that's the healthier um, part of an addiction. But see, addicting doesn't mean that you're only addicted to that person. You could be addicted to a number of people, and you could be addicted to your older member, but you just haven't had the experiences and the choices and the motivation and the calibration of the importance to like I can't sometimes want to do certain things, you know, so I have to work my way into it. Like we had to change the oil on this thing, and it was like, oh man, I don't want to do that. I know it's a dirty job. I've done oil changes before. I make mistakes sometimes, and anyway. So anyway, so that's the thing, It's like, I mean, that's a trivial example, but that can extend to a lot of things that we don't want to do. Um, like there's times when I definitely don't want to work on another document for you know what, if you know me. But so but I recognize that uh, the consequences for not doing it to me aren't something I want to take a chance on. And so if I have the time and effort and help, I dig into it. And that can go to a lot of things, right? So Hyperbrook says Hyperbrook says someday space miners humans extract hormones from potatoes to make stuff like birth control. Give me a break. I didn't say that. Oh, you're talking. Somebody's talking about potatoes. Yeah, I agree that the next level is gonna, they're the true boss. They're the judges. They're the true Elohim. They're above the human kingdom, so they can. It's like a human has the right to um, know better what's good for an animal, and if they're a good human, then they're not going to mistreat that animal. But that doesn't mean the animal won't be used for food. Uh, it's not a moral thing with the animal because the animal is going to still, I think, I don't know if this is true or not exactly, but I think any relationship that an animal has with a human can be a positive relationship for the mind. Sure, the vehicle uh, that's destroyed in like in a farm um, isn't going to like it and want that to happen. I don't want my vehicle to happen to. But it's part of the design that it does happen to all the creatures. So they already have a program for it. So it's not like you're. So the mind that comes from it would be related to uh, just being in the environment with the humans, maybe. And maybe not fighting against that, not trying to kick everybody and bite everybody or whatever they do to try to get out. Maybe that's a sign of, I'm just going to go along with this. Everybody else over here is doing the same thing. And they're giving us food, drink, and everything. And I don't really like standing in this mud. And, but, it's not terrible. In fact, it's cooling in the summer if I, roll around in it. Anyway, I'm just being silly, but uh, I guess that's the way I think about it, whatever it's worth. Um, Humans are a higher level than potatoes are a higher level than humans. Now, see now, hyper baroque. Then you said, uh, you're just dominating the chat now, and you're saying stupid stuff. I mean, clearly this is stupid stuff. So, I mean, do you really want to be here to just, get your beef off or something? Okay, if no, you think you have good logic that the next level wouldn't start from zero over and over again? Well, who says they start from zero? Who says the human kingdom started from zero? That's your limited perspective of how the human kingdom starts. And now you're using all kinds of terms yeah, you have to go. I'm glad. Because you're not saying anything of value to anybody that I can see so far. Wow. You're a nihilist in the nth degree, I think, which is fine, Just good luck. So I guess with that said, unless there's something else somebody wants to say, uh, I'm going to call it a night.